No, you're still fine. There's still people coming in. We can hold on. Ready, Commissioner Barnes? You all set? Go ahead. Do you need? We can wait a minute or two. Okay. Commissioner Ashbrook, are you ready to start? You good? Commissioner Shad, are you ready? Everybody's good? I'll give you a second. We'll wait just a second. Okay, at this time I'd like to call to order the Tuesday, October 13th Lynn Haven City Commission meeting. At this time, if you would please stand for the invocation. Thank you. Commissioner Friend, I forgot to ask you in advance, but would you mind asking the invocation for us? Thank you very much.
Father, we just thank you and we praise you, God, for today and this opportunity to gather together, Lord. We just recognize this day and opportunity that you made it, Lord. Let us live and rejoice in it, God. And Lord, we thank you for the wonderful, beautiful country that we have the opportunity to live in, Lord. We just think of those that have served and continue to serve for the freedoms that we exercise day in and day out, Lord, to live in such a blessed country, Father. And we thank you for Lynn Haven. We thank you for the leadership of Lynn Haven. We thank you for the residents, Lord. And we just pray that you'll give us guidance and direction as we go about the city's business. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. At this time, would you please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. Can everyone hear okay? If you cannot hear, would you please raise your hand? Okay, we're good. At this time, item number 3 is the mayor's report. And the report that I have today, I've had a few wonderful experiences in the last 2 weeks. I was the guest speaker for the Lynn Haven Lions Club and able to learn something about their club. And they actually invited me to become a lion at large, which I really like. Not a large lion, but a lion at large. I like that very much. And I also had a chance to speak to the Emerald Coast Professional Business Women's Group. And they wanted me to talk to them about my first 5 months as mayor and how it is to work with all of you gentlemen on the city commission. And I told them that it was a delightful experience. And I was sincere as I said that. And then I had a chance you were supposed to laugh, gentlemen.
Yes.
Thank you very much. And then I had an opportunity to meet with Miss Sarah Howell about an upcoming event at Roberts Hall, which will be a songwriters festival, and an opportunity to contribute to that. So that was fun. And finally, but last but not least, I had a wonderful meeting with our Leisure Services Director, Miss Maria Stout-Tate, and we talked about some ideas for the coming months. And we have all kinds of good ideas for festivals, including such ideas as Lynn Haven's own Oktoberfest, possibly our own Azalea Festival and Parade, and we have the most beautiful azaleas in the county, I think. And maybe a hermit crab festival with all kinds of beach music around that, an Oktoberfest in September, and old-fashioned Christmas in December around the Roberts Hall area with carriage rides and snow for the kids. Just lots of fun ideas we talked about, and we're going to be looking forward to including citizens and committees, and really, someone said, well, you can't just have a party all the time, but if you have lots of parties, people will come to Lynn Haven and we'll build our shopping district and things will continue to grow, and people are having a good time. Makes life a lot more fun. So those were my report items, and I'll turn it over at this point, Commissioner Shad, for your report.
Thank you. I just got back about an hour and a half ago from attending a day-and-a-half seminar in Sandestin. Every year, Gulf Power puts on what they call the Economic Forum, and it's a very intense day-and-a-half meetings, one after another, all devoted to the Northwest Florida area and region. And they bring us up to date on a lot of things that are happening, plus the trends that are coming. And one of the biggest future trends that is going to come to this area, and we will benefit one way or the other, either directly or indirectly, in that there will be much more aerospace activity in supporting units of the aerospace. That is one area in this country where the manufacturing is coming back to this country that once was shipped away to other countries. So that is a good positive. Florida enjoys the fact now that we are the third largest state in the union. We surpassed New York. We only have California and Texas ahead of us. From an economic standpoint, we outgained the national average and the averages of all the surrounding states close to us in our economic growth in the last 6 months. So things are beginning to turn around in Northwest Florida. Your property values are beginning to go up. Your jobs opportunities are beginning to go up. They're not predicting that they're going to keep going like this. What they're saying is there is a strong trend in our area for sustained growth in this area. We did have excellent speakers. As a matter of fact, the governor came by this morning and spoke to us for about 15 or 20 minutes, filling us in on a lot of things that not only had he done, but things that are beginning to fall into place in the future that are going to help not only the state, but more significantly, they're going to help our area more than they will some of the other areas. Of the metropolitan areas that they monitor from an economic standpoint, they measure Mobile, Pensacola, Fort Walton, and Bay County. Okay, we have sustained better growth in all four of those areas. Fort Walton is very, very close to us. We surpass Pensacola and Mobile to a large extent on the growth and the economic recovery, which is good for us. They pointed out areas that we're going to need to continue to look at in the future. And, I made some notes. I don't have them with me. But overall, that was a day and a half well spent in meeting with those people and listening to the seminars and their presentations. And that's all I have, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner Shad. Commissioner Ashbrook?
Yeah, I just had a couple of things. Like to give kudos to Maria. I think the Parks and Recreation is doing a good job. We had some improvements I was told about and went by and saw down at Kane Griffin Park. Of course, that cut-through road, I don't know what else to call it. Getting a lot of good comments from that. My family in particular, they come down 389, my grandson. So I've had very good feedback from that little project, Marie, that was cut in. And I guess the most enjoyable time I had was at Buck Steele's send-off. So it was kind of an enjoyable time when Howard, he was a very valuable employee, and I think he'll be missed. It's a tough hole to fill. That's it.
Thank you. Commissioner Friend?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, just have a couple of things. First of all, getting a lot of good response from our YouTube. So thanks to Ian, the staff, everybody that put that together. A lot of people are looking at that, and they like the fact that it's archived, so they can always look back and see if they can't look live. So hello to all the live people. If you're not live, hello later on. But anyway, they like seeing everything that's going on, and they particularly like seeing the comments from the folks that come up. They finally get to see some of the things that we talk about. They get to see what's happening, so that's really been good. Also, I'll be traveling on May. I'll be traveling on behalf of the TPO to the MPOAC in Orlando at the end of the month, so I may actually miss the 27th meeting, but I'll phone in or whatever I need to do there. But that's all I have. Thank you.
Commissioner Barnes?
Yes, I had the opportunity to attend the grand opening and the ribbon cutting ceremony at the Institute of Endocrinology. That place is beautiful. They've done a fantastic job, and I think that corner of Highway 77 and Baldwin Road is really going to look good once it's completed. And Saturday, I had the opportunity to present the proclamation to NAMI. Virgil had asked me to do that, and so I went up there and had a very nice crowd that was there, a lot of interesting information, and so I was glad to be a part of that.
Thank you. At this time, I would like to call on the city manager for item 5, the city manager's report, beginning with his proclamation for Mental Awareness Month.
Okay. Proclamation, whereas October's Mental Awareness Month, NAMI is a national organization that advocates for those with mental illness and for research. NAMI Bay County is the local group that offers support for families and for consumers, and whereas mental illness strikes 1 in 4 and can be a debilitating disease. In 2009, there were 778,000 adults with serious mental illness in Florida and approximately 140,000 children and adolescents with serious emotional disturbances. And whereas many who are incarcerated should be in a hospital for treatment and not in prison, therefore I, Margot Deal Anderson, Mayor of the City of Lynn Haven, Florida, do hereby proclaim October 2015 Mental Awareness Month in the City of Lynn Haven and urge all citizens to actively participate in the scheduled activities and programs sponsored by the National Alliance on Mental Illness to work toward support, advocacy, and research for people living with mental illness. Witnessed by the Mayor and City Manager.
Thank you.
And I also have just a reminder about, the meetings are being streamed on live. Thank you, Commissioner Friend. If you haven't checked that out, please do. We have received a lot of positive comments, and again, thank you to staff, as Commissioner Friend said, for making that happen. Just another announcement, our librarian, Sue Wiles, who's been with the city for a long time, is retiring, and we will be replacing our librarian within a month. We're sad to see her go. And another announcement, and you might see folks in the next week, community service hour workers. You've heard me at budget time talk about, really brag about the efficiency of the city when you look at the relative ratio of city workers to citizens. We're almost double that of other similar sized cities. Well, that's great. But a lot of times that means we don't have enough folks out there cleaning ditches and mowing and doing all the hard work out there. So this is something we've been looking at for the last year or so, and we finally got the right connection. And we'll have 16 community service workers who will be supervised by city workers. And I wanted to reiterate that they're all going to be male, they're going to be non-sexual predators and nonviolent crime offenders. These aren't prisoners, these are community service workers. So we're going to test that out. We probably can use more than 16 should this work out, but I think it's an excellent way for us to look at complementing our workforce. So be on the lookout for that. Continuing the positive note, if Mr. Steve Pointer, Officer Steve Pointer, could step forward. He is our Employee of the Month for September. And those of you who don't know and aren't around Bay Haven, he's our SRO officer in Bay Haven, the one off 389. And I'm fortunate enough to have a son that goes out there, and I know him personally because I get to see him about every other week. And he does just an excellent job, and he's an excellent representative of Lynn Haven. He's been with the PD, I think, for about 6 years, and Bay Haven about half of that time. But he's instituted, not only is he the SRO, but he goes above and beyond. He instituted a couple of programs. Couple I can think of is you've got a program that locks the classrooms down should there be an emergency, and I think some of the other schools in the county have modeled their process after his. And then there's also the SRO of the day a student gets to be an SRO, and that's either a prize or a booby prize. No, he's well loved, and he's endeared himself to the community out there. And again, I couldn't think of a better representative for Lynn Haven out there. And I'm proud of what you do for us. And we've got a plaque for you and a little going out to eat money for you and your family. Thank you. And I've also got Supervisor of the Quarter, Mr. Lucante. Jerry's been with us 27 years. He is our fleet maintenance supervisor, and that's a long name for he's the one that's responsible for over 180 pieces of equipment, from bush axes to police cars. I mean, just the whole fleet, every city vehicle you see out there. And he's well known for his organizational skills, probably a little bit hated at some point, you know, a little OCD, but he does a great job for us. And the thing I can say that I appreciate most from him is that he figures out creative ways for us to not have to buy new vehicles as quickly as maybe some other cities do. So I appreciate you keeping them running, and I appreciate you, Jerry.
At this time, I need to back up to our proclamation that the city manager read earlier on mental awareness. Could I get a motion from someone on the commission to accept this proclamation in a second?
Also move.
Second.
Thank you. And if you could please call the roll, Mr. Schubert.
Commissioner Friend?
Yes.
Commissioner Barnes?
Aye.
Commissioner Ashbrook?
Yes.
Commissioner Shad?
Aye.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes. Thank you. And the motion is passed. At this time, item number 6, the city attorney's report.
No report, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 7 is the consent agenda. First, the minutes for 9/22/15, the regular meeting. May I have a motion and a second to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion or questions from the public? And there is none. Would you please call the roll, Mr. Schubert?
Commissioner Shad?
Aye.
Commissioner Friend?
Yes.
Commissioner Barnes?
Aye.
Commissioner Ashbrook?
Yes.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes, and that has passed. The consent agenda for 9/29/15, which was a special meeting. Is there a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion or questions from the board or from the public? And there is none. Mr. Schubert, would you please call the roll to accept the motion to confirm the minutes for the special meeting?
Commissioner Shad?
Aye.
Commissioner Friend?
Yes.
Commissioner Barnes?
Aye.
Commissioner Ashbrook?
Yes.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes, and that is passed. Item number 8 is old business, and there is none. So moving on to new business, item number 9 is discussion and possible action regarding approval of a radar certification contract with Communications International. Is there a report from staff or the city manager?
This is an annual occurrence. We are required by state law to biannually certify and calibrate our laser units. And this agreement allows us to piggyback onto the state contract, the same as FHP, and provides us a substantial savings in doing so.
Okay, thank you. Is there a motion that we accept this?
I move approval.
And I'll second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion or questions from the board? Are there any questions or discussion from the public on this item? Yes, sir.
Two times a year, every 6 months.
Thank you. Any other discussion or questions? Okay, at this time, would you please call the roll for item number 9, Mr. Schubert?
Commissioner Shad?
Aye.
Commissioner Friend?
Yes.
Commissioner Barnes?
Aye.
Commissioner Ashbrook?
Yes.
Mayor Anderson?
Aye. And that motion has passed. Number 10 is the discussion and possible action regarding approval of contract for lawn care services to Grass Cutters Lawn and Landscaping of Panama City Incorporated. Is there a motion for this item?
I'll approve it.
I'll second.
There's been a motion and a second. Are there any questions or discussion from the board?
I do have a question for the city manager. Mr. Schubert, is this the same company that we have been using in the past, or what?
Since 1999.
Okay. All right.
There were 4 bids. This was by far the most economical bid, the cheapest bid we had, and staff is more than content with their service the last almost 16 years.
And they've been doing a good job for us over this time period.
And I also had a question, just Is this, again, because of just shortages with staff that we do this out of the city? or-
Yes, it's
Okay.
cheaper to complement the staff rather than do all the cuttings ourselves.
Thank you. Okay, any other questions from the board? Questions from the public? Mr. DeFell?
Mr. DeFell, it's a volume issue. In fact, a year ago, DOT, we were actually doing some of the work on 77 ourselves, and I took a look at it and what a contractor under DOT would cost, and it was much more efficient as far as our budget to have the DOT contractor mow out on 77. It costs us more to employ people than it does for us to contract with a private contractor to complement our current staff. So it's cheaper for us to engage and partner with a private vendor than it is to staff the leader services department. I lost my battery. These are 13 sites that are more conducive to a private contractor coming in than for us to do them. And I say conducive, it's easier for them to get to. It doesn't require them any specific keys. It's cheaper for us to partner with private industry. You can't hear me, can you? I'm sorry, my mic's out.
The city manager is saying, Mr. DeFell, that at this time, that he's saying that it's cheaper for the city to employ private industry rather than to have them on staff where they're with benefits and all of the other trimmings that go with that. So he's saying that at this time, his belief is that it is more cost-effective to use this contractor, which has been under contract, I believe, since 1999?
Yes.
Yes. And there is a detailed online, and also you can get a hard copy of it, a detailed list of the services and the exact places where the services are being performed. If you would like a copy of that, it is available.
I believe it's a 2-year with a 1-year renewal option.
Mr. Walker?
Two-year renewal option.
There's a list right here.
Thank you. Rich Walker, 1106 Michigan Avenue. I read that packet on that, and it's interesting. Some of the places don't have grass or anything requires, but that's inconsequential. What I'm looking at is, of the 15, there was at least 3 or 4 of them that are going to disappear within the coming months. They're not going to become, in fact, they're going to become parking lots. There's going to be no grass. Is there any stipulation in the contract where these things will be addressed and maybe the price will be reduced or the requirement will be eliminated?
I missed that. If it's in there, Mr. Schubert can address it to you.
No, I'm curious as which one you're talking about that are going on. I mean, if you look at the bids, they are by far the cheapest. And I mean, certainly there's always, we can terminate a contract with notice at any time.
That was not really what I was out for. It's just that the sites that I'll give you one, for example, the CRA and planning office is going to be made into a parking lot.
Right.
That's listed there. That's going to disappear, so you don't have any maintenance.
Well, you're going to have grass there. It's going to be more for them to do. I mean, they're not maintaining the building, so now you're going to have,
Yeah, right.
1,800 square feet more for them to maintain in that situation.
So the building going away, you're going to put grass there for the parking lot?
They're going to maintain whatever improvements are there. I'm sure as a parking lot, and I'm sure that parking lot's not coming in the next year or two. So,
Okay, all right. I was just looking at some of the sites.
Sure.
And if they disappear, maybe we can get them removed from the contract.
Are there other questions or discussion about this particular item? And there's none. At this time, Mr. Schubert, would you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Shad?
Aye.
Commissioner Friend?
Yes.
Commissioner Barnes? Aye. Commissioner Ashbrook?
Yes.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes. And the motion has passed. Okay, moving on to item number 11 is Resolution 2015-10-632, amending the city's fee schedule. Is there a report from staff regarding this change?
Just briefly,
Do we need to read the resolution first? Is there a resolution?
Yes.
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Resolution number 2015-10-632, a resolution of the City of Lynn Haven, Florida, amending Chapters 10, 42, 54, 70, and 86 of the fee schedule and Appendix A of the Lynn Haven Code of Ordinances, and providing for an effective date. This is our fee schedule in three major areas that were changed, and they're all in there in detail, is the registration for pets was removed. It was a $5 fee, and frankly, nobody was paying for it. And the whole impetus for this is for folks to come register their pets. So, one, it's not a huge financial benefit to the city, and two, we want to encourage folks to do that. So if something happens or if a pet's lost, we've got the history. So we eliminated that fee. The sports registration fees and some of the facility rentals were also changed. Some of those went up, some of them went down, none of them too dramatically, but Maria and her staff did a great job in adjusting those and bringing them in with what's reasonable, I believe. And then the solid waste and utility fees were increased, the small percentage that was voted on, I believe, about 2 or 3 commission meetings ago.
Okay. Are there questions or discussion from the board? Questions or discussion from the public? Okay. At this time, would you please call the roll? Oh, sorry.
Don't have a motion.
I didn't get a motion yet, I don't believe either. Sorry. Come forward. That's fine. Do it reverse.
Bring my cane in. Libby Tanel, 505 Virginia Avenue, Lynn Haven. Listen, I would like to ask about the fees for use in the parks. When we have charitable organizations there, the park belongs to everybody in Lynn Haven. Why do they have to pay a fee to use it? If they clean up after themselves? I don't think it's fair. So that's my question.
Okay.
Why do we have to pay a fee to use the park? I know when the NAMI had their thing, they had to pay $25 to use the park. Isn't that right?
Not exactly. I can answer that now.
And also, why did they have to buy insurance for over there? Doesn't the city of Lynn Haven cover the park's insurance?
Mr.
So
Sherritt.
that's a question I'd like to ask you.
You want to answer that, Maria? I mean, I'm fine to. Go ahead, Sid. Why do we charge? We don't make a dime. That's our goal is to not even break even. We want to recover most of our costs associated with the high cost that you'll see would be in renting the facilities out at the sports park or anywhere that requires lights.
Well, I understand that, but
Sure.
the parks, why?
The parks, they have a deposit. Do we refund that whole deposit, or is there? And that's associated with the cleanup and the maintenance of the pavilion.
Well, most organizations, if you have anything there, if you clean up after yourself, you don't have to pay to clean,
Right.
for the city to clean up. I don't think it's fair, and I think we ought to do something about that myself. And also the insurance.
Sure.
They had to pay $240 to have insurance over there and to cross the bridge, and the bridge belongs to the state.
Right.
Why did they have to pay all that? That was the cheapest they could find.
I think that's a very legitimate question.
Sure, and the answer to that is we should have been doing that for years. According to our insurance broker, we're not covered. So having the individual organization, much like with the event over there on Florida Avenue, we just weren't doing it, and we were incorrect in not requiring insurance. It's common in other cities as well, and we're just trying to protect the coffers of the city.
Well, charitable organizations, I think it ought to not be covered.
I would sure like to accommodate you
Okay.
there, but it's
I'll fight
it's
you.
a lot. It's just a basic liability issue that the city can't take on
I don't
without
think
the coverage.
it's fair.
And Mrs. Tennell, I think that that is probably something that we could maybe bring up in a public discussion and see if there are some other options, because I tend to agree with you. If there's not a special, something dangerous going on in the park, if they're doing motorcycle races or something like that, but if it's just a charitable organization planting flowers or having a picnic, that I would agree with you, and I think there's some discussion to be had there. Mr. DeFell?
Excuse me, Virgil DeFell, 1009 Colorado, New Glen, Florida. I've been the liaison person for the use of Sheffield Park, particularly for the National Alliance on Mental Illness. This is our 6th year of having it here. Prior to that, we had it downtown in Panama City for, I believe, 5 or 6 years there. A question about fees, or what we pay is we put up a deposit of $25, and as far as I know, we've gotten that back every year because we're very careful to follow the rules. They're not that stringent, but take the trash cans out to the street so they can be picked up there rather than from all over the park. Now, I was going to comment later, but I'll go ahead and cover it now. The cost of utilities, water and electricity, is $8 an hour. And, personally, I don't have any objection to that at all, have not for all through the years. This year, for the first time, though, we had to indemnify the city of Lynn Haven with general liability insurance. Fortunately, through time and due diligence, we first had a quote of $700, and through investigating, I was able to get that down to, as I mentioned, Mrs. Tennell had, about $246. And it's also been spoken that perhaps there's some way to compromise on this and have a insurance company that is certified and qualified and all those good things to indemnify the city of Lynn Haven, but that we would, in essence, whoever needed that insurance, because of course that is required by the rules from our leisure services. So it would be helpful if some of us didn't have to spend tracking down and negotiating for a continual lower fee with different companies. We were fortunate this time, I feel, but it would be helpful if somehow the city could help us with that. Or, see, we were told that our state organization would cover that. Well, when I investigated that about 2 months ago, found out that was not true. So we did follow the rules, and looking to the future, we'd like some help with the things that we're required to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. DeFell. I did not ask for a motion and a second regarding this item, and so if I could get that, or if there's more discussion from the board that maybe we need more discussion about the item. So,
I'll move approval. Excuse me.
is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any other question or discussion from the board? I had neglected to do a motion before I asked for public commentary. That was a mistake of mine in protocol. Is there anyone else in the public who would like to ask a question or has discussion about this item? And there is none. Mr. Schubert, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Shad?
Aye.
Commissioner Friend?
Yes.
Commissioner Barnes? Aye. Commissioner Ashbrook?
Yes.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes. And if I might just make a comment, as I said to Ms. Tennell, I think that there would be some room for discussion, maybe a public workshop of some type, and maybe some more looking into, because we've also been talking about in the future, because there's so many events where we want to maybe have wine at a park concert or that kind of thing. There are just some different things that I believe we need to look at as a city with our insurance as we move forward, as we have more festivals and parties, and Mr. Schubert and I have discussed that too, so maybe we can bring that up as a public discussion. So, moving on to item number 12, which is a discussion and possible action to proceed with refunding of a current bond. Is there a staff report on this item?
Mr. Ralph Seeland's here today, but Essentially, this will be the last bond that we have. We have 7 bonds in the city. We've got approximately $19 million worth of debt in bonds. This one is slightly over $4 million, and this would just be to entertain a motion that would allow him to firm up some numbers he's already provided to us. And essentially what he's preliminarily told us is if we were to refund this bond, we'd still pay it off the same maturity date. It's 12 years from now. We would save approximately $28,000 a year, depending on what the final interest rate would be, and that's just an annual debt savings. And that is inclusive of the cost of obtaining a bond. So it's on the agenda today to just petition the commission for him to move forward to see what the deal would actually look like if we were to refund this particular bond. And it's a 2005 sales tax bond.
Is there a motion from the commission?
So moved.
And there is a second. Are there questions or discussion from the board?
Is it a motionable item to just have you go out and do research?
That's my understanding.
Okay.
So basically, whenever he get the numbers, he has to come back to us and we'll have
Right.
to vote on it and all that. That's what we've done in the
That's
past.
my
Yeah, there would be a
understanding.
resolution and everything once the numbers are firmed up. And
Is there any discussion or questions from the public? Okay, this time, Mr. Schubert, if you could call the roll, please.
Commissioner Shad?
Aye.
Commissioner Friend?
Yes.
Commissioner Barnes?
Aye.
Commissioner Ashbrook?
Yes.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes. And the motion for discussion and possible action is passed. Okay, moving on to item number 13, which is discussion and possible action regarding Gulf Power Company seasonal decoration agreement. Is there a staff report regarding this item?
This is an annual agreement. It's up for renewal. It is the agreement that addresses our partnership with Gulf Power for the Christmas or the Christmas decorations along 77 that you see. Incidentally, I've also had conversations with our Maria Stout-Tate, our Leisure Services Director, to replace those at some point in the near future. But this is just our agreement for them to provide utilities to light those this year. And it had some verbiage update on it as well, and it's been vetted through the city attorney.
And Mayor, if I could just update one thing, we actually did go back and forth with Gulf Power on this quite a bit. I'm not sure why, but one thing that is in here that we would not normally agree to is the city has a home venue privilege. So if we get sued, we have the right to be sued here in Bay County, and they wouldn't give on that and wanted it to be in Escambia County. I mean, it's a Christmas decoration agreement, so I'm not sure how critical that is, but I did want to point that out to you all before you took a vote.
I'm not sure I understand what you just said.
Sure. If the city is sued by anybody, we have a right to be sued in Bay County instead of somewhere else. They put in the agreement that if there's a lawsuit under this agreement, it'll be in Escambia County over in Pensacola, which is where they're based at. And for some reason, that was a really important term for them. So.
And is that still included?
Escambia County is in the agreement. So the city has a home venue privilege that we can force people to sue us here unless we waive it by contract.
Okay.
So by approving this contract, you'd be agreeing that if there's some lawsuit on the Christmas decorations that against Gulf Power, that we could be sued in Escambia County instead of here.
So they wouldn't budge on that?
They wouldn't budge on that.
That's weird.
So what is your recommendation?
My recommendation is if you all are concerned about being sued for the Christmas decorations, then versus the Christmas decorations themselves, then my recommendation is that it's not that big of a deal. I guess that's the bottom line.
I'm trying to think of the possibilities that are going to fall on someone's head.
The chances of a lawsuit over the Christmas decorations is not very good, and I don't think it's a critical point.
I mean, they're just simply going to bring action in the Escambia court instead of Bay County.
I get that.
And we've actually waived this before in the previous.
Okay.
This agreement's for 5 years, and we've actually waived this before the last time we did this. So
We have the city attorney on tape now saying we're not going to get sued.
Is there a motion for action regarding the Gulf Power Company seasonal decoration
I
agreement?
move we approve it.
Second.
There's a second. Is there any other question or discussion? Questions or discussion from the public? Mr. Schubert, if you would please call the roll.
Commissioner Ashbrook?
Yes.
Commissioner Shad?
Aye.
Commissioner Friend?
Yes.
Commissioner Friend?
Yes.
That was an echo. Commissioner Barnes?
Aye.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes, and that has passed. Moving on to item number 14 is the first reading of Ordinance 1006, a small-scale plan amendment, SSA 15-4, James Finch and Associates, 1408 Georgia Avenue, industrial to commercial. This will be a reading, and is there a staff report as well, or just a reading?
Typically, just a reading and no
Okay.
further action.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ordinance number 1006, an ordinance providing for the adoption pursuant to Chapter 163 Florida statutes of a land use change from industrial to commercial for an approximate .344 acres of property located at 1408 Georgia Avenue in the city of Lynn Haven, Bay County, Florida, repealing all ordinances in conflict herewith and providing an effective date.
Thank you. There's no need for a motion on a first reading. Item number 15 would be the first reading of Ordinance 1007, Small Scale Plan Amendment, SSA 15-5, James Finch and Associates, 1411 Alabama Avenue, mixed use to commercial.
Ordinance number 1007, an ordinance providing for the adoption pursuant to Chapter 163 Florida statutes of a land use change from mixed use to commercial for an approximate .516 acres of property located at 1411 Alabama Avenue in the city of Lynn Haven, Bay County, Florida, repealing all ordinances in conflict herewith and providing an effective date.
Thank you. Moving to item number 16 is the first reading of Ordinance 1008, Small Scale Plan Amendment, SSA-15-6, James Finch and Associates, parcel number 10213-025-000, contiguous to 1408 Georgia Avenue on the south.
Ordinance number 1008, an ordinance providing for the adoption pursuant to Chapter 163 Florida statutes of a land use change from mixed use industrial to commercial for an approximate .086 acres of property located south of 1408 Georgia Avenue in the city of Lynn Haven, Bay County, Florida, repealing all ordinances in conflict herewith and providing an effective date.
Thank you. Item number 17 is the first reading of Ordinance 1009, Amendment to the Comprehensive Plan Proportionate Fair Share Transportation Mitigation.
Ordinance number 1009, an ordinance of the City of Lynn Haven, Florida, amending the City of Lynn Haven's comprehensive plan by revising a portion of the capital improvement element and a portion of the concurrency management system as they pertain to proportionate fair share transportation mitigation, repealing all ordinances in conflict and providing for an immediately effective date.
Thank you. If I have a puzzled look on my face, it's because my iPad is blank at this moment. So I'm listening. I think everyone, the attorney's having the same issue. If there's something that Ian can do for us, they're just blank screens. Thank you. Moving on to item number 18. I'll just look on with the city manager. First reading of Ordinance 1010, Amendment to Unified Land Development Code, Section 2.02.06, Section 4.02.01, Section 4.02.02, and Section 4.06.03.
Ordinance number 1010, an ordinance of the City of Lynn Haven, Florida, creating Section 2.02.06 and amending Section 4.02.01, Section 4.02.02, and Section 4.06.03 of the City of Lynn Haven Unified Land Development Code, providing for a Florida Avenue corridor overlay, repealing all ordinances in conflict, and providing for an immediately effective date.
Thank you. Moving to item number 19 on the agenda, the first reading of Ordinance 1011, Amendment to Unified Land Development Code, Section 6.01.06.
Ordinance number 1011, an ordinance of the City of Lynn Haven, Florida, amending Section 6.01.06 of the Lynn Haven Unified Land Development Code as it relates to proportionate fair share transportation mitigation, repealing all ordinances in conflict and providing for an immediately effective date.
Thank you. Moving to item number 20, Discussion and possible action approving development order DO-15-5, Blue Moon Parking Lot, 1411 Alabama Avenue. Is there a staff report?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mayor, before you do that, this is a quasi-judicial hearing, so I'd like to go through the little process.
Didn't say that on my
I know,
agenda.
but it is.
Okay.
Let me just to get that on there. Item number 20 is a quasi-judicial hearing of the City of Lynn Haven. Anybody planning on providing a testimony, go ahead and stand and raise your right hand. Swear the testimony you're going to provide is the truth upon penalty of perjury.
I do.
Thank you. And if any commissioner has had any ex parte communications with the applicant or the city about this matter, please go ahead and disclose that on the record now.
I've had none.
I've had none.
I've had none.
I've had none. I've had none.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am.
This is an application for a development order for the Blue Moon Restaurant, which is, the Blue Moon Restaurant is actually located on Georgia, but this development order request is for a parcel of land located at 1411 Alabama Avenue. The applicant is James Finch and Associates, Inc., and they are currently in the process of changing the land use on this approximately half-acre parcel of land to commercial from mixed use. That was one of the ordinances that was read earlier for the first reading, and that will come back for the full explanation at the next commission meeting. The applicant would like to be able to construct a parking lot on this approximate half-acre to accommodate parking from the Blue Moon Restaurant, and as well as having a parking lot on it, it will have stormwater ponds and landscaping. This is an aerial here which shows you the parcel. It's currently vacant on Alabama. To the right of the parcel on Georgia Avenue is the Blue Moon Restaurant. This is a site plan which shows you the parking lot, and this one here shows you how there is going to be to the south there, that's the stormwater facility, and there is landscape buffering surrounding the parcel and also in the vehicle use area. And I think that the intention is to relieve some of the parking which is currently taking place on Georgia and on Alabama up and down the street there.
Is there a motion regarding this item?
I had a question. Can we, should we pass the motion? I'll make a motion to bring the question.
Second.
I think I know what you're going to... Go on.
Okay.
Were you going to ask about the approving of the development order prior to the...
Thank you.
Yes. What normally happens, I say normally, there are options. What tends to happen is that the land use change would be approved by you at the second reading. It then gets sent to the state because land use is state controlled. And then there are 30 days that somebody can challenge it within 30 days. The applicant is aware of this. It was discussed with the attorney and the applicant was given certain options. The option that has been decided upon is that we're going to put as a condition of this development order that if it's challenged, if he goes ahead and proceeds with development, if it's challenged within the 30-day period and this the land use change is not allowed to go through to commercial, he will have to tear up anything that he's put down there. He can't have his parking lot on a purely mixed-use parcel.
So
That was his choice.
So the development order would have a condition?
Yes, it has. It's written in there already.
Correct. Okay. Just want everybody to know that.
Yeah.
Are there other questions or discussion from the board? Are there any questions from the public? Yes, sir. Is your question for Ms. Richard or for the board? Okay. You want to? Do you mind staying nearby? Thank you.
Rich Walker, 1106 Michigan Avenue. This came up in the Planning Commission, and they had some questions exactly where you're going here. One of the questions seemed to be is, don't you have the horse before the cart here? You're going to be approving a development order on a development of a parking lot on something that you haven't approved to do. Amanda correctly pointed out the procedures which were addressed at the Planning Commission. They had a lot of questions about this. and a few concerns, is this has to be approved by the state. Then it comes back to you. And then you can go ahead with the development order. The other question was to the developer, is there a rush here? The answer was no, there's no rush. So maybe rather than putting a contingent on the development order or a contingent on the small-scale amendment, we should wait until the amendment is approved. And then, with what DCA will say or does say to correct it if it is questioned, then the development order can be attuned to that change. I think that would be a good procedure to do. Coupled with the fact that we weren't allowed to go anything with the first reading, and you didn't have a workshop on any of this or any of the things, the Planning Commission was very interested in these changes, and a lot of thoughts were brought up. We can't bring them up to you right now because you had a first reading. We're not allowed to talk. So they will probably be brought up in public commentary. But my point here is I think you should wait till the state says what you can do and then go for the development order.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there other questions or comments regarding this?
Mayor, could I just make a couple
Sure,
of comments,
sure.
Mr. Walker's? One, there's going to be for the second reading of all the ordinances that we just went through very quickly, there's going to be a workshop scheduled before the next commission meeting, so there'll be two opportunities for public input on all those ordinances. Two, on this DO, I would submit that if the developer is willing to take that risk and he's going to remove those, I mean, this is, I don't know if you've been there, this is especially towards the evening hours or even the morning when there's low light situation and you've got 390 there, I think it's this would mitigate some of the traffic risk out there. So, you know, I don't have any issues with it because I see this as an improvement as far as traffic flow. And if the developer's willing to assume that risk, you know, I don't see where it's not a good thing to do.
It is integral in the DO that he will
Right.
remove the improvements, should they be denied by us not passing at the next meeting or the state denying what we do.
And I might add, this developer did improve, what road is that right there? The one he improved our road, as a matter of fact. That was in disrepair on the, I guess that's going to be the south side. Right.
Okay.
East side. Georgia. He did substantial improvement to the road between the Blue Moon and 390 there as well. I just see it as an improvement for traffic flow and mitigating the risk. So I'm kind of excited to see this come on.
Are there other questions or comments?
Can I address that? Just in information, is in the Planning Commission, in the packet that was given to them, there was a suggestion that there were public meetings on this. There haven't been. What I'm trying to get at is there are procedures that we have agreed to, and these are procedures that are set down by the state. And it seems that we're getting, as the Planning Commission rightfully said, getting the cart before the horse, approving something that we don't have really permission to approve yet. Procedures. It seems that we have procedures for some people, and we have procedures for other people. That's why the state set it up. Checks and balances. That's the point I'm trying to get at. And in the packet, you did say that there were public meetings on this. We haven't had any public meetings on
Thank you, Mr. Walker. Any other comments or questions?
I would just like to point out that the planning board meeting was a public hearing. That's a requirement, a statutory requirement, and we did advertise that in the legal section, and that was a public meeting. And the planning board did have questions, but they ultimately recommended approval, and the minutes are in your packets.
Thank you. Are there other comments or questions from the board? Okay, is there a motion for, do Do we need another motion for moving forward?
I think the first motion was
Was for discussion.
For discussion, yeah.
Is there a motion for approval of this item?
So moved.
Is there a second? Is there any discussion from the board or further questions? Are there any further questions from the public? Thank you. Mr. Schubert, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Ashbrook?
Yes.
Commissioner Shad?
Aye.
Commissioner Friend?
Yes.
Commissioner Barnes?
Aye.
Mayor Anderson?
Aye. And the motion has passed. Item number 21, discussion and possible action regarding minor subdivision application John S. Whaley, 920 10th Street East.
I'm just waiting for Ian.
Waiting for it to come up on the screen
Yeah,
there.
and there's a typo when it does come up.
There we go.
Okay. This is an application for a minor subdivision. The applicant is John S. Whaley, and the address is 920 10th Street East. It's on the corner of 10th Street in Mississippi, and I'll show you the aerial in a moment. What Mr. Whaley would like to be able to do is to reconfigure the two lots which are currently there that run from the north to the south. He would like them to run from the north to the south instead of the current west to east, so that he can have two buildable lots, because there's a requirement in the historic plat area. This is the aerial shot. It's on the corner of Mississippi and 10th. And this is what he would like to do. You can see that currently he has lot 9 and lot 10, and they're running like west to east, and that's the historic plat. They are 50-foot lots when they are on Mississippi Avenue, and in the historic plat area, currently people are not allowed to build on a 50-foot wide lot unless it was recorded individually as a 50-foot wide lot prior to the 1975 tax roll. He would like to reconfigure these lots and split them so that they're north to south, and then he will have two 75-foot wide lots facing 10th Street, which means he'll meet the 75-foot wide plus the 7,500 square feet condition and have two buildable lots.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
I'll move approval.
Second.
Are there any other questions or discussion from the board?
I'd like, go ahead. I'd like to give Mr. Whaley an attaboy for being creative,
Yeah.
figuring that out.
Who's better than one?
Are there any comments or discussion from the public? Mr. DeFell?
Excuse me, Virgil DeFell, 1009 Colorado Springs, Florida. I am curious if there's any requirement of builders, contractors, homeowners, property owners to save. We can't save all the trees. We can't very well save the trees and have a parking lot where the trees are now. But is there consideration, or perhaps even sometime an ordinance that would require trees be planted elsewhere to compensate for the trees we're cutting down? You know, it's easy for us as where we are now to think we have more than enough trees, but we don't. And we certainly won't for generations to come. So in order to keep Lynn Haven in certainly it's a desirable area, the trees are essential, I think, to maintaining Lynn Haven. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. DeFell. Okay, are there any questions regarding item 21, discussion and possible action regarding minor subdivision application with John S. Whaley? Any other comments or questions?
Mayor, I think Amanda wanted to
Yes.
approach the podium.
I missed that, thank you.
I just wanted to let you know, in case you didn't, that when it comes to commercial developments and also subdivisions, residential subdivisions, people do have to show us what trees are on site. and have to try and develop around the trees wherever possible, and where they can't, then they do have to mitigate for the trees that they're removing. When it comes to individual lots owned by people like this one, though, there is no requirement.
Thank you. Other questions or discussion? At this time, would you please call the roll, Mr. Schubert?
Commissioner Shad?
Aye.
Commissioner Friend?
Yes.
Commissioner Barnes?
Aye.
Commissioner Ashbrook?
Yes.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes, and that motion has passed. Okay, we're down to item number 22, which is public commentary. And at this time, if there are any individuals who would like to bring up any items of discussion, you're free to do that. Yes, sir, on the third row.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is Roy Wilson. I live at 105 East 17th Street. I'm here for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 items. First, I would like to say I love Lynn Haven. My family has been here since 1955, and that's a long time. I've seen Lynn Haven go from the pigtails to big 4 lanes. I've seen Lynn Haven when nobody wanted to live here, and now everybody wants to own Lynn Haven. First, I would start by saying I thank Attorney Jackson, Commissioner Barnes, Commissioner Scad. About 5 years ago, I think y'all were here when I first addressed the commission about the ditch behind my house at 1506 Pennsylvania Avenue, which was some of your older commissioners know as Railroad Avenue. Railroad Avenue was a way of transit years ago from the turpentine manufactured to the water, transport turpentine. Over the years, when the road wasn't used anymore, they used it for drainage. You cut a big ditch. I happened to live in 20 years, the only open ditch remaining from Railroad Avenue. It was at 1506 Pennsylvania Avenue. Since then, I have built my family another house, and as coincidence have it, I am still next to the only open ditch in the city. I grew up where I am now. My family, the ditch was open then, and it's still open. And actually, it is the only open part of Railroad Avenue still remaining in Lynn Haven. I understand and I congratulate the city on covering the ditch on 17th Street. And my understanding is it will be covered all the way to Ohio 17 and 77 Highway. Is that not correct? Well, here again, if y'all are familiar with that ditch and my address, you know that's a big ditch, which is Railroad Avenue that runs this way. 17th Street ditch runs that way. When they built the bank, they covered up part of that ditch. And they put a pipe. We'll pipe it off. And on this side of the ditch, it's still open. Now, when that 17th Street ditch is covered, and that water has no restriction, which that's what it's designed to do in those pipes. And when it hit the Tyndall pipeline and turns and come this way, it's not going to do that. It's going to go this way, back to the only open part of the ditch. In 2010, when I was here, no one knew who owned that ditch, whether it was the county or Lynn Haven. I think Attorney Jackson, you remember that?
Yes, sir, I think I do.
Well, I checked on some statutes. And when that property was sold next to me, it was my understanding that this commission had donated, given, or whatever, the easement, which is 60 feet, to the person who bought that property. Well, of course, you can't do that without authorization from both landowners. I would like to see the city of Lynn Haven do something about the only remaining open ditch from that Railroad Avenue. Now, I know the CRA does not cover that ditch that runs north and south. Only on 17th that runs east and west. Now, why that wasn't included, I don't know. I think it should have been included. I just would like to see something done about that ditch. I don't know. I don't have an answer. That's why I'm here. If I'm willing to listen.
Mr. Wilson, I don't have an answer for you because I'm fairly new at this, but I'm committed to flooding and ditches and paving, which all are tied together, being resolved in the city. That's what I'm going to spend a lot of energy pursuing and making sure that funds go to take care of that. That's really all I know to say to you. I need to come and look at it. I'm a visual person. I need to come and look and see where your house is and what, I kind of think I know where you're talking about, but I'd like to come and visit with you and look at it and talk to you about it, and then find some experts either on this board or elsewhere that can tell me what the future plans, if any, are. And if there aren't any, then we need to start, looking at it, because flooding and paving are two huge issues in my mind, and two things that I'm extremely committed to. So I do promise you that I'm going to remain committed to that. And I'll let the other board members respond to you as they wish as well.
Thank you. There is no flooding now, but when that ditch is covered and those pipes are put in there, and that water starts flowing, then there's going to be problems.
And I hope that is not the case. I don't think we have the city engineer here with us, but I'm hoping that has been part of the plan, and Mr. Schubert, that the experts are.
Yeah, I just spoke with them this afternoon. They take all those dynamics, by covering that up, they take all that flow into consideration. So, I mean, theoretically, you're going to have better flow, so you shouldn't have more water in your ditch. Well, but having said that, I'll get with the Public Works and the city engineer, and we'll get back with you.
Theoretically,
no, I understand there's theory, yeah, right.
When I was at 1506 Pennsylvania, and the Popeyes company covered their half of the easement, and they put pipe behind the express loop place, and they said that should ease the flow, but it only narrowed a 10-foot ditch down to 4 feet with the same amount of water in my backyard state flow.
And your address was 105 East 17th Street, is that correct?
105 East 17th Street.
Anybody else on the board? Thank you, Mr. Wilson. I appreciate you coming out. Ms. Pinnell?
Libby Tennell, 505 Virginia Avenue. If we're speaking about ditches, I'd like to tell you about my ditch. It flooded back in 3 years ago during the 4th of July rain we had. The water all backed up underneath my house. It rotted out my floor in my great room, and I spent about $40,000 having it repaired. And the mayor at that time came over and said it was a drainage problem. Well, it's not my problem, it's the ditch's problem. And I wish y'all would come look at that. It's on 5th Street, right off of Virginia Avenue.
I drive right past your house every morning.
And you see my
And I
ditch.
see it, and my house was flooded too, and it's still wet underneath, and we've got a big problem, and we need to fix it. I agree with you.
All right, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Anybody else? I'm sorry, I don't mean to be the only one speaking. Y'all feel free to jump in. Anybody else in the public have something to talk about? Mr. DeFell? Sure. By the way, thank you to all of you for being here today at the commission meeting. This is how we find out what the problems are and what we need to look at. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate you.
Virgil DeFell, 1009 Colorado Avenue, Lynn Haven, Florida. Our event on Saturday, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, we had probably between 150 and 175 people there during the day, and most of them there at the beginning. And I want to thank our Mayor Pro Tem, Commissioner Barnes, for coming and doing the welcoming, followed by the Scouts of Lynn Haven United Methodist Church, Troop 321, followed by the Minister of Music of Lynn Haven First Baptist Church, and also that our Director of Leisure Services was there and was introduced, Mrs. Renee Stout. I want to commend her staff. I had requested that I meet with someone prior to the event and met with her representative, Mr. Sid David, on Friday afternoon. Mrs. Marie Stout came herself to see that everything was in order for the next day. Now, a year ago, we had a flood for that whole week. We weren't sure until late Friday if we were going to be able to have the event on the following Saturday, a year ago. But I just want to comment, and our acting president has sat there and not said anything, but I want to introduce everyone to know that nothing gets done without our acting president of NAMI, Mrs. Charlotte Dean. You want to speak, Charlotte? So it's just one more reason why I enjoy living in Lynn Haven is all the cooperation we get whenever we need it as far as I am concerned. And Mayor, I know you had let us know that you would be out of town, and so all the things that have been done that we appreciate, and I'm sure we can come to some agreeable solution to the insurance problem.
I'm sure we will too, Mr. Duffel. Thank you. And I would also like to thank Commissioner Barnes for serving as Mayor Pro Tem over the weekend. I was visiting my little granddaughter in Potomac, Maryland, who was celebrating her 6th birthday, so I appreciate that opportunity to be able to travel. Thank you so much. Is there any other commentary? Yes, ma'am. Okay. You made that sound like medicine, Miss Arlen.
Rich Walker, 1106 Michigan Avenue. If I can solicit that you're going to address under public meetings it is the proposed amendments to City of Lynn Haven Unified Development Code, I'd say Ordinance 10110. If you're going to address that in a public meeting, then I can forego my conversation about that.
Yeah. 18, agenda item 18. All the ordinances, we're going to have a workshop before the next commission meeting on the 27th, so the workshop will be the 26th.
That's good, because then we can get down to the nitty-gritty on that. But with that said, I have an interesting question. A long time ago, a couple of years ago, we passed an ordinance which was called the City Manager's Squirrel Law.
The city manager's what?
Squirrel. You know, the little animal that climbs the trees and eats all our pecans?
Yes.
And that allowed us to shoot them. It was not controversial at the time. A couple of weeks ago, at a meeting, one of the citizens got up and asked what was the aftermath of, not of that, but of this new rule that says by the state of Florida that the squirrels are an endangered species. So I contacted the city attorney, and he said state law trumps municipal law. So that ordinance is shot. And I used the pun, shot. But it's still on the books. What do I do now when I go out and find a deceased squirrel on the city street? Do I bury him with military honors? Do I call our animal control and ask for permission to do something? Do I report to the police manslaughter? I'd like to know, but my real question is this: can that ordinance about shooting them be taken off the books? And the public be advised that this is an endangered species, and maybe what procedure we want to take in reporting the death.
I will defer to the city attorney.
I'd be happy to address at least the background on this. I think probably everybody here knows that squirrels are not endangered species. The ordinance that I believe Mr. Walker is talking about was, we had an old city ordinance still on the books from the 60s that prohibited harming squirrels, and there's a bunch of list of reasons why you can't harm squirrels, trap them, kill them, choke them, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. One of those was shoot them. In, I think it was 2010 or 2011, the Florida legislature passed a very wide encompassing gun prohibition law that basically said municipalities cannot regulate the use of guns in any way, shape, or form, and put severe penalties on any city that did not instructed the cities to remove anything from their ordinance involving guns, and put it was either a $50,000 a day or a $5,000 a day penalty for any city that did not remove the gun sections by a certain date. So as part of vetting the city's code for any kind of gun provisions, I found the section about shooting squirrels, and so we took that out of the ordinance at the time, but we left the rest of the ordinance in place.
Does that answer your question?
That answers my question, except for, is it still an endangered species or not?
They're not an endangered species.
Thank you.
No.
I think Ms. Arlene had the next one, and then Ms. Francis.
This is not a problem, but it's a compliment for the way the city is moving forward and the beautification program. I'm very pleased about that. And I can think of a lot of homes that could use the beautiful home of the month. You know, we have some really beautiful homes here in Lynn Haven, and a lot of people have worked on their residences and made it look really good. I wanted to say at our little corner at 9th and Florida, where you guys are also trying to promote Florida Avenue. The 3 businesses there, Victoria's, Salty Marsh, and Roberts Hall will be out on Halloween night with some little treats for the children as they come by on their way to and from Sheffield Park. And just to call attention to the development in that corner of the city, and we're pleased that you guys are all addressing that also. And also on the 30th at Roberts Hall on Friday, we have the basic storytellers doing Halloween things, and it's not just for children, it's for everybody, and they are just tremendous if you haven't seen them. That's all. Thank you very much for what you're doing.
Thank you. And everyone, in case you don't know, Miss Arlene keeps regular business hours at Roberts Hall, and she's there countless hours during the week and keeps that open for the public, and she is completely a volunteer. So she deserves a round of applause.
Speaking of the open hours, we have made a commitment to be open the same hours, have the hall open the same hours that Victoria's is open, and that's from 11 to 2, Tuesday through Saturday. And we have a changing art exhibit that changes every 2 months. And so it's open to the public so they can come in and see the building and see the art. And that's also completely free to the artist as a part of our community outreach. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Francis, I believe you were next.
Francis Whitcoff, 1515 Missouri Avenue, Lynn Haven. I want to say thank you to the commission. I lobbied for years to get them to open up that road between the industrial park and the rec center, and I was told it could not be done. And you all did it. So thank you very much, because I was afraid someone was going to get killed. There was that one road in and out, but now it's fine. Thank you. And I still want my Rails to Trails. I haven't forgotten about it. It's still out there. So work on it, please.
And maybe Mr. Schieber, if you wanted to address Rails to Trails as maybe coming up in the future.
Absolutely.
It's on the list of discussion items.
Good. Right.
Yes.
That's tied in with the Field Depot property, and we should see some movement on it for sure within the next 3 months.
Really? Good.
Yes.
They're working on it closer. Okay.
Along with their library.
Okay. Yes, I haven't forgotten that either. So there's a couple of projects. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there any other question or discussion this afternoon? Thank you so much, everyone. The meeting is now adjourned.